right, I'm going to need you to be honest with me. We've known each other for a while. I trust your judgment on this. I'm going to put a poll somewhere. Whether you're watching this on Spotify, YouTube, there will be a poll somewhere. Be honest with me. Do I sound like Riz Ahmed, specifically in his performance in Sound of Metal? I personally don't think so. A lot of people that I've surveyed think so. And the reason I bring this up is today's guest has brought this up to me before. And I just want to know, I need this peace of mind. I need this settled within me. Do I sound like Riz Ahmed? I don't think so. You could maybe make the argument based on like his cadence and his performance in that film. I don't think so. Some people think so. Let me know. I'm curious to see what people think. Let me know. Good morning. Welcome back to the ALG show. Today we're going to be talking with Justin Fairweather, a director, writer, and editor. Today we get into a range of topics, including his films Dog Person and Roger J. Carter, Rebel Revolutionary, as well as the experiences he's had at South by Southwest, among many different topics we get into on today's show. I don't have anything to plug, so without any further ado, let's get into it.
Well, man, I've been working on a lot of stuff. Heading into the third draft of a feature film I've been writing for a while now. A very genre blendy thing, which is something I'm very excited by as a writer-director.
Yeah.
Heading into that, I have an outline of another feature film that I wrote a short for that became a proof of concept for something that I'm hoping to get made. Some stuff in TV as well, just trying to keep very busy, but still making sure that all these projects excite me in some way, usually when it comes to mixing tone together in fun ways and having them tethered to strong characters. So just all over the place, trying to keep busy.
So you keep sort of scripts to like this genre agnostic zone.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I just have naturally gravitated towards.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing things that I feel like I've never seen before, and that usually involves mixing and mashing of genres in intriguing new ways.
Yeah, so this feature that you're kind of going through right now, is this kind of your first round at doing feature scripts, or have you done kind of other features before?
This is my first round at that. I will say so. I've had numerous drafts of it along the years.
Yeah.
So in between drafts, I've worked on other things. So it's technically the first feature film script that I've worked on, but I've since in the middle of it worked on other things along the way. So
yeah, like other scripts you've kind of toyed with and stuff like that. Okay, cool. And that's kind of your mainstay. Features, feature writing.
Yeah, definitely. I would say I'm most aligned with that. That being said, I'm also a huge television fan.
Yeah.
And feel like there's so much space in TV to really explore and do cool things in that medium.
Yeah.
But yeah, so either or. But really, right now, I'm in the film the feature space more so.
Yeah, and you direct there as well.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the goal. I haven't directed a feature yet, but the goal is to get one up and running. I was gonna say soon, but soon in LA terms is like could be forever.
Could be a year.
Yeah.
Could be a decade.
Yeah, exactly. So get one going in the foreseeable future, I would love to say.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're working on a feature that's based on a short. Is that a short that you've done? Is that like something that someone else had previously written and you're expanding on that idea?
Oh, what I said was, so I'm working on this and I'm working on a feature film that I then funneled into a short. Okay. Like for a proof of concept.
Yeah.
Like, cause it's very hard to get financing out here for pretty much anything.
Yeah.
So I think strong proof of concepts go a long way. So one of the scripts I've been working on, I've taken the bones of it and put it into like a 10-minute kind of tonal short film that can hopefully stand on its own 2 feet as a captivating short, but also raise kind of interest in financing for a feature.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Is that out already? Have you done the whole?
No.
Not out yet.
I no. I submitted the short script to a contest. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
But would love to see that go somewhere.
Yeah. Speaking of shorts, you did a short that I personally am a fan of, Dog Person.
Yeah.
How did that come to be? What was the production process of that
Yeah.
like? And walk me through that.
Okay, so that was my senior thesis short at Towson in Maryland. How that came about was, so in Towson you have your senior thesis, which is the last big short film you get to make in school.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make something that really pushed me out of my comfort zone as a director and as a writer. And I was just really gravitating towards, and still gravitate towards, bat crazy like films and artists that really just are fearless
Yeah.
in the types of things that they make. And I was watching that summer before that semester, I was watching a lot of David Lynch films, and his films are just crazy, like in every single way.
Yeah.
And I watched Mulholland Drive, and then after Mulholland Drive, I just had the thought, my things come to me kind of visually first, and I just had just an image of a dude crawling in a hallway on all fours in his underwear. And I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And then, to be clear, there's nothing in Mulholland Drive that looks like that.
Yeah,
It's just the feel of Mulholland Drive got that going for me.
Yeah.
And then I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I was like, what if I just did this? What if I just went, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's just go for it.
Yeah.
And then, like, literally maybe 20 minutes later, the title came to me, Dog Person. And I was like, okay, now I have to do it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we did it. And the production process was a trial by fire. Like, I had never done anything that big up until that point. And by big, I mean, it was a roughly like 25 person crew. Like, so as a senior at a school that isn't one of these like big heavy hitter film schools, like that's a lot for me. And so I learned a lot the hard way.
Yeah.
But I'm proud of how it came out, and it definitely made an impact, and it was super cool to be in the audience and hear like audible reactions to things that I was really hoping would get audible reactions. And I heard like a wow at some point, which always feels good.
Yeah.
And then it later went on to get a Directors Guild of America Student Film Award from the DGA, which was amazing. The Grand Jury Prize for African American filmmakers.
Wow.
And it was just really fun to work on.
Yeah, definitely deserving of that Grand Jury Prize. I don't know if I told you, but when I initially watched it, I had to like pause kind of immediately when Lucky first came out.
Yeah.
I was like, nope. Like it was just so like off-putting.
Yeah.
But I think that was like the intention. I figured
Absolutely.
It was so off-putting. I was like, nope.
Yeah.
Let me pause for like 2 minutes.
No,
and
yeah.
I came back to it. I love it. It's great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's really good.
Thank you.
Phenomenal. So film school, as far as that goes, what I didn't have that experience. What do you feel like you learned a lot from going to film school? Do you think like you maybe could have gone without it? What's your kind of relationship with the film school experience, having done like the thesis and that sort of thing?
For me, it was absolutely integral because I was able to surround myself with a lot of incredible collaborators that helped the creative process. And without them, I wouldn't have been able to make anything of that scale at that point in my life. And also just the access to the equipment, and also all of the teachers were so supportive and gave so much valuable insight. I thought it was an incredible experience. I made so many friends who I still keep in touch with, and going to a film school in somewhere that isn't LA, you find that later in life, once you make the transition out to California, people start to, follow, not because of you, but, because you just landed, because this is the epicenter. Yeah. So you start eventually on a long enough timeline to see people kind of the people that surrounded you in Maryland surround you in California, and that's great. And you guys get to continue to build with each other.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I like the idea. I think like in filmmaking, community is such a, like a huge part of what we do, and you know, at least with like the people that I work with, like my camera crew especially, they're like the homies.
Yeah.
Like we're just friends outside of this, you know? And I think it's really cool to see that, like, it seems like a common thread with people who have gone to film school. Like there's this community that's been created that you can always like reference each other as sort of like, did you have this sort of experience, and kind of compare notes in a way, sort of thing. The only reason I ask is because like I didn't really have that film school experience. I was just like went to school for marketing, and just work started to pick up, and that was kind of my film school experience, if you can even call it that. I wasn't even majoring in film. Like it was just completely different thing. So it's cool to see that like you built up a community from Maryland, and then to have them be here is also like a really cool thing, because you're probably seeing them like, oh, like we're doing this, like we're out here.
It feels nice because I moved in 2020, like March 1st. So COVID shut down everything, and the following year was very insular. Like nothing was open. So I only really had writing and hiking. You know, I love hiking, but it'd be nice to have people around too, you know what I mean? It took a minute, and I'm not saying the entire school is out here, but I can definitely feel both the interest from people who are still out there in coming over, and also just literally people have started to come over. Like some of my closest collaborators have started to come. So that's exciting. It's always exciting to, as you've said, like make films with people you genuinely like. You know what I mean? So
definitely. Yeah, that's a really cool thing. So that grand jury award, what is... I don't know much about the DGA. I'm just a cinematographer.
Yeah.
What did that mean for you, and what is it, the DGA award?
Well, we'll start with the Directors Guild of America, which is basically the guild.
The guild.
It's like
they are them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They are basically the guild that most accomplished directors are represented by or a part of. And the Directors Guild of America Student Film Awards, which wasn't something I was aware of until my Professor Kramer at Towson sent me the link. It was like, hey, you should submit Dog Person to this. And I was like, okay. I kind of really didn't think much of it, like, because the DGA is like a big thing. It's like, you know, the guild. Yeah. So the fact that I got in was a blessing for sure. It was definitely a huge honor to be represented or to be acknowledged by such a big organization. And then when you go to the DGAs, it's like you're in the hallway and there's all these behind the scenes pictures of all these accomplished directors on set, like directing, and you're like, oh, that's John Singleton. Oh, it's Ryan Coogler. It's Spike Lee. It's all these people. And you're like, wow, my piece somehow is in a place that is, you know, championing these people. Like it's absolutely crazy. So
did you ever at any point, like during that, like around the time those awards were happening, did you ever feel a level of like imposter syndrome with your work?
It's interesting. I don't know. I was surprised by it, because partly because Dog Person is really weird. But you know, weird in my senior brain. I mean, it's still weird.
Yeah.
But I feel like I can get a little weirder. But it is pretty weird.
Yeah.
So I was just surprised that it was acknowledged, but I think I was just too excited to experience imposter syndrome.
Interesting.
Because especially there was a Deadline article and stuff like that was coming.
Yeah.
And I was just excited to be in Deadline and to be in Variety. I was like, oh, shit, my name's in there. So I don't think I had time. I don't think my brain was there. I would say I felt more nervous when I like put it online.
Yeah.
I think that because that's more about opinions, like public opinion.
Yeah.
Over kind of like a more privatized celebration.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've definitely felt that way. Like, more just like an on edge sort of thing,
Mhm.
like with films that I've done that have gone and done the festival
Yeah.
run. Like as much as like yes, it's receiving this recognition for what it is, there's still like a certain level of like
Yeah.
like what you're saying about like expectation. Like it wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make this film. I'm gonna get into like all these
Yeah.
festivals.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get into
Yeah.
Sundance or whatever. Like, you know, not that I had those expectations, but it was still like the nerves of like the public opinion.
Mhm.
Like, what are they gonna think of this? Because
Mhm.
you know, up until it's public, like it's very much like yours and the
Mhm.
teams, like
Mhm.
everybody who worked on it. It's like it's like you letting your kid go off to college. It's like
Mhm.
you want them to do well. You don't want them
Mhm.
to fall on their feet, and you're just scared of like what's gonna happen. But you kind of have to let it go and just like surrender it to the public and
Right.
like their opinion is their opinion,
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
And there's definitely been films that I've done where like the public opinion wasn't great purely because of the topic,
Mhm.
but I mean, I feel good about what I did, and I think that's all that really matters. Like, I'm
Mhm.
sure you feel great about Dog Person, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always am self-critical of my work, but I
Yeah.
will say, looking back at where I was in that time of my life, which was a senior college student
Yeah.
who was just really trying to push himself to do something different
Mm-hmm.
and something that didn't feel like only my peers would enjoy. Like, my mission statement going into that was, let's make something that can lead to an actual career after I leave school.
Mm.
Like, I didn't want to just make like an inside joke of a short. I wanted to like make something that felt like an experience that I could see being shareable and stuff like that. That also cared about the characters, but also cared about getting a reaction
Yeah.
out of you. I think looking back at that and the fact that I was able to do that in school is something that I'm proud of for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely really cool, and I
Mm-hmm.
definitely admire that you were able to do that.
Thank you.
I mean, you know, I of the people that I know who did film school and you know, had their films kind of come out publicly, you know, at least like what am I trying to say? Like of those films that I've worked on, like it hasn't. I've viewed it as like reps,
Mm.
and then there'll be another chance for me to go for like PR, which in
Yeah,
my mind
yeah,
is like
yeah,
features,
yeah.
you know, and that sort of
For
thing.
the
And
people that don't go to the gym listening to this podcast, PR is personal record.
personal record or personal best.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know, I mean, yeah, that's. I mean, that's the way I view it. Shorts are very, in my mind, they're reps.
Right.
I'd like to do more features. I've done two, and those I think are the ones where I'm like, all right, PR.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where like
Yeah.
I feel like I have enough confidence to approach that.
Yeah.
I feel like if I like off the rip went for something and then have it get all this attention, I feel like I would just be like scared that it's like not my best piece that I could be doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, but that's really cool, man. And I definitely was reading this like Deadline article earlier. Like, holy
It's
like
pretty
that's
cool.
huge. Like the head, what was the headline? AFI tops DGA's 25th annual film student awards. Like
Yeah.
that's incredible to be on that level of like AFI as well.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah, it definitely meant a lot to get Towson's name in an article
Yeah.
with these other big film schools. That was definitely one of the highest points of pride for me in that
Yeah.
process.
Did you have any other? So you got into the DGA's 25th student awards.
Mhm.
Was there any other? I saw that you mentioned the DC Black Film Fest.
Yeah.
I figure that's another high point for Dog Person.
Yeah, I got into the DC Black Film Festival where I met a lot of other cool creatives. What's crazy about going to these festivals is that, and I didn't know it then, but I've seen it now, which is like, it could be in Maryland, it could be in Nebraska, it could be in wherever.
Yeah.
You meet these people who have interesting things to say, and then years later, you guys just reconnect. So I met like, I don't want to like name drop people or like, but I met cool people there who were like up and coming,
Mm-hmm.
and out in LA they're here,
Yeah.
and like, you know, closer than you may imagine. Like,
Yeah.
so it's pretty cool to grow alongside people who are on the journey with you. So
Yeah, you know what's funny talking about film festivals. I met someone else at another event who had gone to Proof,
Oh,
but we hadn't had an official introduction when we met.
that's cool.
And I casually mentioned like, "Oh, hey, I was at
Yeah.
Proof. Like, I saw your film. Like, it's great." He's like, "Oh, man, like,
Yeah.
that's really cool. I appreciate that." And so, yeah, it's interesting to see how small
Right.
the community is and how small the industry is. Like, you know, because you were talking about earlier being in like all these different states. You don't think of it as like small, but it is small.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's much smaller than you think.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So that's cool that you were able to kind of catch up with other people and kind of see like, you know, their films at another festival as well. Like that's really fun.
Yeah.
Another film that you did that I really liked was this piece that you did for, I'm assuming, an homage to Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Called Thanks Stan.
Right.
What was that production process like? What was the initial like conception of it?
So I'm a huge nerd. Like, you already know this, but like I'm a huge nerd, and Stanley passed in 2018, and I was like, you know what? I've been obsessed with Marvel everything since I was a kid, and I just wanted to find a way to pay homage to him, pay tribute to his life, and pay respects to his impact through my craft. So this was a project I did after graduation. Very short, like under 2 minutes, it looks like.
Yeah, it's just over 2 minutes.
Yeah. And I just wanted to make something short that just was like packed a punch and kind of embodied his words and his message.
Yeah.
And I think we did that. I'm really proud of that one. I think it turned out really well.
Yeah, I definitely like really enjoy it as well. Like, I think it's a really fun piece, and I think to be able to do that homage is really incredible. You did, looking back at it again, you did an animation for it, I believe.
Yeah, so I storyboard everything that I direct.
Yeah.
My first love was drawing, so I just take it upon myself to just do storyboards for everything that I direct. And for this one, I did storyboards alongside a previs animation for it, which is what I kind of showed some people to get them on board with the project, because I just wanted to relay my vision as clearly as I could.
Yeah.
And it worked. The dude who plays the father in the short, his name is Koi. And he actually moved out to LA recently, which is really dope. We've linked up and talked and stuff. He's super cool.
Oh, nice.
He was like, "Yeah, man, you sent me that previs," and I was like, "Wow, this is gonna be great." You know, so like, so you know, it helps bring people on board. Unless you're talking about the legit animation in the
the legitimate animation. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this was something where I saw the artist's name is Willow Waves, and I saw her work online. She made this like short animation of Spider-Man, and it was like Disney inspired. Yeah. I was like, wow, that is so cool. Yeah. And I can't remember if it was before we shot it or after. No, it was definitely after. We shot the short, and I sent her what we had. Yeah. I was like, would love to have you on board, like, love your work. And she luckily came on board and killed it. It's so cool. It's such a vibrant piece of work.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's like probably, for me, it's like one of the highlights of the piece easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it is very, it is very Disney inspired. It's very vibrant.
Yeah, I've heard from people, some people have thought it's an actual Spider-Man cartoon, like, that existed. I was like, nah, we commissioned this to like just be a part of it. So it's pretty cool that.
I mean, I was convinced. I really thought it was like.
I'd watch it. It looks so cool.
You know, I thought it was initially, and then I looked back in your Instagram and you kind of posted about like having done an animation for it. And it looks great.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, like shout out to Willow. She did an incredible job. Yeah. So this wasn't done in LA.
No, this was in Maryland.
This was in Maryland
when I was raising money for LA, which is what I recommend everybody do. Yeah. If you're gonna move. Yeah. Don't move without a savings account. Jeez. But yeah,
it was funny talking about like savings. I didn't do that transitioning to freelance work. It was just like, okay, now I'm doing freelance work.
Nice.
This is my life
Okay,
now.
that's a choice.
No
That's a
savings.
choice.
Figuring it out.
You know.
Do I regret it? No. I don't
Yeah, of
think I would
course
have
not.
done it otherwise,
Right.
but it is a lot smarter.
Yeah.
Take
Yeah.
his advice. Get a savings account. Get something with high yield interest, whatever that is. I'm not a financial guy, but probably look into that. But so this was done in Maryland. How many days was this?
This was a weekend.
A weekend.
Yeah, I think we did. I'm trying to remember. We did a bulk of. I think we did one of the locations all day, and then the next day we did like another location. It was like a half day
Mm-hmm.
on the second day, but it was a Saturday, Sunday, and I remember I was working at a wedding editing job
Mm-hmm.
at the time, and I loved those guys. Like a lot of them were also big nerds, and I showed them. I remember when I showed them the cut, and they were like, "Whoa, like this is crazy." So yeah, it was a weekend in Maryland, and really enjoyed it. It was such a fun set. I think yeah.
Yeah. What are the just because I'm curious, I've done work in LA, I've done work in New York. What are the like production resources like in Maryland? Was this stuff from the school? Did you outsource from other people who had equipment? What was the like gear market? What was the market like just like in general in Maryland?
That's interesting. Well, it was it was self-financed,
Yeah.
and basically just rented out gear from a rental stop or shop.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean the crew was all my Towson peers.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them were graduated at that point and just wanted to make something cool. But yeah, there's definitely less of resources in Maryland than there is in Cali, but there are more than you expect.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was the backbone of it was the people that I met at
Yeah.
Towson. So the school wasn't involved in the making of it, but the students were.
Yeah.
So
Okay, cool. I mainly asked just because I know like when I'm sourcing equipment here in LA versus like New York. New York is like expensive
yeah,
compared to here in LA. I think again you're talking about like the abundance of
yeah,
of rental shops and like just even just owner operators that are out here. Like it's a lot more likely that you're gonna find like something for a good price.
right.
Whereas like in smaller markets like New York, I was up there kind of recently, like for less than 24 hours. I was doing some editorial work, and the rental house that I went to, I could only walk up to it. I walked up to it, grabbed the thing, grabbed an Uber XL, and got out of there. Like that was kind of the extent of the rental shop experience. Where it's like here you can go to a shop and pull up like with your truck and like, get everything settled.
Right.
You know, I'm sure it was like that in Maryland, where it was kind of like tight logistics and like that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely very smooth.
Yeah.
Very smooth. Yeah.
That's cool. I'm glad. Very great film, by the way.
Thank you.
I really enjoy a lot of the stuff you're doing. Aside from, the scripts you're working on, it's definitely really interesting. So, 2020, you're out in LA. Right, you've done some acting work, some on-camera work. What is that?
So I did a stand-in opportunity,
Yeah,
stand-in / photo double work for this film, Charm City Kings. But this was actually also before I moved. It was in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
They shot in Maryland,
Yeah.
and this was 2018, so just after school.
Mm.
And then I was standing in for one of the 3 leads, so I was on set like the entire time,
Mm-hmm.
minus like maybe 5 days out of the entire schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Shot a little bit over a month, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that was directed by Angel Manuel Soto, who went on to direct Blue Beetle for DC, and shot by Kate Arsmendy, who's done a lot of stuff with Succession and stuff like that. So it was so incredible to see them both on set. And I knew, like, at that point, I believe this was Angel's second film.
Mm-hmm.
His first one was a foreign language film. I just knew that his trajectory was just gonna pop like after, because I like everything I saw was like, wow, this is shaping up to be a genuinely great movie.
Yeah.
And Kate's frames were amazing, so I was like, this is gonna be really good.
Yeah.
And then a year later, they had me back for a weekend of reshoots and slash additional photography.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then it came out. The film came out after I had moved out to LA.
Mm-hmm.
So it came out. It was scheduled for a theatrical release in March 2020, but of course, COVID said,
COVID happened.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah.
nah, you thought. And then,
Psych.
and then, eventually, it was going to be a Sony film, and eventually, a new streaming platform at the time called HBO Max appeared and plucked it, and it actually became, I believe, the first film to be released on HBO Max, like feature film.
Oh, wow.
And if you would like to watch it, you can no longer watch it because I believe they pulled it for tax purposes.
No.
Yeah. But I think you can like rent it places. But I'm really proud of the movie.
Yeah.
It has a high Rotten Tomatoes. Like it's really good in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just, sadly the industry right now and the tax write-off stuff I'm not really a big fan of. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can find it, if you can rent it somewhere, I highly recommend because it was great to be on that set, but it's also just a great movie.
Yeah. What is the film called?
Charm City Kings.
Charm City Kings.
Yes.
Okay. I'll have to give me a log line. What is it about?
It's about it's a coming of age story of these three boys living in Baltimore. The main kid, he's trying to be a good kid, but he's kind of being what's the word I'm looking for? He's kind of being compelled by the street life and specifically by this motorcycle kind of dirt bike life out there that is really prevalent. And the lead of that group is played by Meek Mill, who becomes sort of like a father figure. But he's torn between Meek Mill and this police officer, so it's kind of like a battle for this kid's soul. But it's really good. It's really good.
Oh yeah, I'll have to look for it because I was ready to go on HBO and kind of stream it tonight.
Yeah,
but
I think you'll dig it. It's fun. It's earnest. It's the characters are really compelling.
Yeah,
and the action is great as well.
Yeah, I always really enjoy like coming of age stuff.
Yeah,
at least for me, like I can view myself in those scenarios.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like just being in that position of like just young and not knowing a lot,
right?
And just looking for that sort of guidance, I think is always something that I look for in other films for sure. Whether it's like films that I'm working on or films that I just generally consume, those are the ones that I tend to connect with. Speaking of sort of this underdog type philosophy, what has your experience been with like mentors? Do you always look for them? Do you have a few in the Rolodex? Do you not give a shit? What is your experience been with like mentors?
Well, I don't know if this is a purposeful segue, but so soon after moving to LA, I was fortunate enough to become a part of what's called the Black Boy Rights, Black Girl Rights mentorship program, which is spearheaded by Mike Goyo, who was a story editor on Insecure and now a showrunner for show Send Help and All Black. And he's a very intelligent, smart writer who kind of took us all under his wing and kind of gave us an added layer of community out here, especially in a time where I was looking for that.
Yeah.
Like after moving during the COVID pandemic and like, so this was 2022, so I really managed to find a solid group of peers that I can just call my friends, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And through that, I met Morgan Cooper, who created Bel Air. He was one of the guest speakers, and I managed to show him some footage of a project I was working on, which I assume we'll talk about a little bit. But and from that, Morgan became a collaborator, and so that's kind of the extent of my mentorship out here thus far.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's been amazing to have people who are accomplished who believe in you and your voice.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think it's great.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about living out here is like the proximity you have to people you respect and admire is so close. So yeah.
That's interesting. I've never had like proper mentor sort of thing. I've had I guess like what I would classify as like a parental figure,
Mm.
where like they're kind of what I would describe as like the guide rails in a bowling alley.
Mm.
Like they're not gonna help you make the strike, but they're gonna make sure you don't land in the gutter,
Mm.
sort of thing.
Gotcha.
They weren't people that I necessarily went to for advice or like
Yeah.
what you were talking about, like having community. Like I
Yeah.
never went to those people for that, but they were definitely integral to me not falling on my feet
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
like laying out certain principles
Right.
that I still generally follow.
Yeah.
In terms of like going into any production, like kind of one of the big sentiments was always like shoot to edit was like one of the very first kind of principles that I was taught. And even to this day, doing like branded content stuff or like
Mm.
anything where we're gathering a ton of footage,
Mhm.
I really try to consider the edit for that reason.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I don't want to give DIT all this footage and like have
Yeah.
them kind of manage it all. And like,
Yeah.
you know, I like keeping the edit in mind and knowing like, okay, this is going to be something they want or this is going to be something that they don't need.
Yeah.
And at least when it goes into production for certain films or commercials that I do now, like I'm very much like trim the fat sort of thing. Like let's narrow down what we 1,000% need and let's you know make an intention for everything.
Yeah.
So that there's not just like we're not just picking up shots just to pick up shots. Like I feel
Yeah.
excessive in that way.
Yeah, that's kind of always been how my brain has been
Mhm.
wired, especially I think it ties back to the storyboarding
Mhm.
where it's like I know for a fact what we don't need. That being said, if my DP is like, yo, we should probably get something like this, I'm of course going to be open to it.
Yeah, of course.
That being said, yeah. And especially being an editor as well,
Mhm.
like I basically have been trained to know what is necessary and what's required. So it's definitely helped my filmmaking for sure.
Yeah, because you're seeing it at the end of it and you're like, oh, this wasn't necessary.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, this
yeah.
is excessive and,
Right.
and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
You mentioned like doing previs work and
Mhm.
having like a pretty thorough like storyboard. Do you like to do when you're working with like a DP, for example? Do you like to have that storyboard going into the conversation, or do you wait to talk to them and then kind of massage the like shot list after the fact?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Typically I have it going in.
Yeah.
That being said, once I leave the conversation, it's very possible things are going to change.
Yeah.
Like, because it's a collaborative process. But I do like to be prepared in that way and go in and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking here. Show them and then get their perspective on it.
Yeah.
And then it can be massaged after that. But I do enter the conversation with it.
With an intention already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's good to know, actually. At least for me, like I notice those people that tend to have like a really solid
Yeah.
vision of like what they want to do. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Like I know what I can do to best serve the project.
Yeah.
Whether it's like through the color, through the lighting, whatever
Right.
it is, like I know what's needed and I could visually see like, okay, we need this, we need this, we need this. That isn't to say that people who don't do that are not good
exactly.
directors.
That's
It's
what
just
It's just different.
It's a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
There's some people who are there's some directors I've worked with who are very like, I need my DP here from the jump.
Mhm.
And we need to go through this entire pre-production process together, which I'm not opposed to. It's just a different way of thinking. And there's even some times where like I like to kind of sit with the shot list and not the shot list, sorry. I like to sit with the script and kind of figure out like, okay, for sure we're going to want to see this, for sure we're going to want to see that. At least for this short film that I'm working on right now, I like printed the script. I usually do this for like films, but I print the script. I do all my scribbles. I just like write like, okay, this could be interesting. This could be interesting. Lighting wise, what am I thinking here? And just kind of go through that. Because I'm sure like also with this particular director, he has an intention already for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's me just sort of like filling in the blanks of like, okay, I saw this and kind of we bounce ideas that way. So it's interesting to see like that you're from the jump setting an intention and then kind of, okay, open this up to collaboration. Let's kind of see where this can go and sort of massage the idea that way. That's really,
of course,
that's really interesting. So you mentioned Morgan Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
How do I segue this? The You both did a film together in collaboration. This documentary, Roger J. Carter's uh, Toy Soldiers and Black Revolutionary. That's not the title.
It's not the title.
Not the title.
That's
Let me
not
find
the
it.
title.
Let me find it. I'm finding it.
He's finding the
I'm
title.
finding it. Roger J. Carter, Rebel Revolutionary. That was a
That
film
is correct.
you both worked on together. How did that collaboration come to be? What was his role? What was your role?
Okay. So basically, the genesis of that project was I was driving around LA 2021. 2020, I'd shot nothing because it was COVID and I didn't feel comfortable getting onto a set.
Mm-hmm.
2021, COVID was still there, but there were guidelines now in place and, the vaccine was there and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I was driving and at night and I saw this art gallery and I was like, okay, I'll check it out on a whim. And I walked in and it blew me away because what I thought were regular portraits were hundreds of toy soldiers on canvas of like making up the faces of these giant revolutionaries. And Roger was there, the artist Roger J. Carter.
Mm-hmm.
I started talking to him and it was like nothing I'd ever seen before and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then days passed and I was still obsessing over it. I was like, there has to be a way where I bring his work to the world while also doing something that I can, implement my own stylistic flavor into. And I met his manager there and I called her. I was like, would love to do something like this.
Mm-hmm.
She said, yeah, sure. And he was based in Chicago. And so we set a date in June, the last week of June, for me to go out there. And I spent 2 months prepping, planning, doing some storyboarding for some of the heightened sequences that we have in the film. And went out to Chicago, filmed it with a Chicago crew who was absolutely amazing. And came back and worked my day jobs as an assistant editor and editor while simultaneously editing the short film. And that took a long time because that was my first documentary. I'd never done a doc before, only narrative stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I just felt compelled to take a leap with Roger because of his work.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I want to see this. So yeah, it was a long time of me finding the voice of the project in the edit while juggling day jobs. And then the writing mentorship came around with Mike Goyo and I became a part of that. And one of his first speakers was Morgan Cooper. And at that point, I was just wrapping up the first cut of the short and met Morgan, was able to get coffee and showed him over coffee just some of the shots. And he really took to it and he was like, send me the full thing. So I sent him the full thing that weekend, and then he offered to come on board as an executive producer.
Oh, wow.
And in that, basically, he gave really strong notes, creative notes, which were absolutely valuable to that process. And just gave perspective onto how to make it the best version of the short that it can be. And he brought his producing partner, Johnny Stark, who was also there giving creative notes, which were also incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Those two really just helped to shape it into something fantastic. And so, yeah, that's how that happened. And then from there, it was submitting it to festivals. I got it into South by Southwest, which was cool. And at South by Southwest, the New Yorker saw it and chose to acquire it. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. I remember we were talking about it over coffee. There was a, you mentioned a potential, like trademark issue with some, with some footage that was in it.
Yeah.
And watching it, like, I believe you sent me a cut or something. Watching it, I was like, okay, I see how this could be an issue, but I think as long as it's addressed, it could be okay. What was South by like for you?
By the way, to address the fair use thing super quickly, it was just some stuff that comes up in a very important part. That's why I was stressing, because it came up at a very important part of the short. Super, like like the central piece of the short. And I thought it was going to be fair use.
Yeah.
But the New Yorker is very thorough about that stuff.
Yeah.
And so they had to like deliberate on it.
Yeah.
And I just during that deliberation, which like literally some stuff happened at the New Yorker outside of the project.
Mm.
So that deliberation process went on for months pretty much.
Oh, wow.
So I was like losing my mind. I was like, I don't want to re-edit this. It's so perfect.
Yeah.
Luckily they came back. They were like, yes, it's fair use. I was like, yeah. But yeah, I'm glad it went untouched. You're asking what South by was like?
What was South by like for you?
It was amazing. It was also just intense. It's very intense.
Intense.
Yeah, I was there for 9 days and was seeing a lot of stuff. And when I wasn't seeing stuff, I was networking. And when I wasn't networking, I was worrying about how the film was going to play, because we had 2 screenings, one on a Sunday and then another on a Wednesday or a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And I get very nervous about showing my stuff in front of crowds.
Yeah.
So I was just really nervous. And yeah. And then part of it was after the first one showed, I was thinking, oh God, did they actually like it? Like, how's the next one going to go? So I was very hard on myself during South by.
Yeah.
But I was also, it was a weird like dichotomy where I was hard on myself, but I was also enjoying it. So it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was an emotional roller coaster for sure. But I got to meet a lot of other extremely talented filmmakers there, which I really am grateful for.
Yeah.
We still talk, and yeah, I think about it often, because it's like that, honestly, like South by Southwest. I don't know if you believe in manifestation or if you write down anything, but for me, I'm a big believer in manifestation. And a few years ago, I wrote down in my notes app, I was like, your next project is going to South by Southwest. And then Roger J. Carter ended up getting in. So that was huge. And yeah, it was emotionally intensive, but I also just loved it.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to go back.
I feel like I haven't had the pleasure of doing a project and having it go to a big festival like that, but I think in my mind I would also be like kind of myself and just like, is this gonna go well? Is this
that was me 24/7.
Yeah.
Honestly.
What is the public reception gonna be?
Bro.
Talking about emotional intensity. You know, in our industry, there's a lot of ups and downs that we experience. Right. Your mental health, how do you navigate that?
Interesting.
Do you check up on yourself? Do you have a regimen to keep yourself in check? What does that emotional dialogue look like within yourself?
Very important question. I put a lot of emphasis on going to the gym, because every time I leave the gym, I feel better about myself.
Yeah.
So this past year in particular, I took a consistent gym journey more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I've had kind of an interesting relationship with fitness my entire life. Yeah. But this past year was like, okay, I'm really going to study weightlifting and study training and get into the swing of that. And I have, and it's been really gratifying. And it's also, that's another thing where it's like, there's also community at the gym. Like, you just start to see people you see all the time.
Definitely.
And then you just start talking to them, and it's like, oh, cool. Now I have like gym friends in addition to like film friends. You know what I mean? So it's really cool. So the gym is a big part of it. And also just surrounding myself with people who I can talk to about things, whether it's friends or family. Like, being able to talk to them consistently is very important. Yeah. So I think those things keep me grounded. And I feel like for me, just, that's why, like, this morning, the first thing I did, I woke up, had a small, like, snack, and just went to this park and just, like, put out a beach towel and just wrote, like, in the park, and turned off my phone. I was just there for an hour. And I think, like, just being able to center myself in nature is also something that helps me. But yeah.
Yeah. The main reason I ask is because, like, I feel like it's such a difficult conversation to navigate. Even myself, like I'm trying a lot of different things in terms of what is the correct way for me to address my own mental issues properly without like, just like what you talked about, like centering yourself and like sort of being present. I actively kind of pursue like, the gym. We talked about it before. Like I have a couple friends that like I just started running independently. So like I don't go to the gym anymore, but again, that community is still very much like there.
Yeah.
And I still kind of keep in touch with a couple people that I used to go to the gym with. And as far as like mental practices go, I found that like writing is a good one. Not writing scripts and that sort of thing, but more so a meditation just to keep myself present. I've kept in mind certain things that I've learned from actually a podcast alumni, Navneen Garaya. She kind of gave me the general lowdown of like meditation, and this is kind of its intention and sort of the benefit it's been to practice that sort of thing. And I'm still figuring it out, and a lot of people that I know are still very much figuring it out. I think we're all just figuring it out, always actively. So it's always cool to see like what you've done and sort of, the practices that you make. Because I think it's a pursuit that is evergreen. It's going to always kind of be there. And I think, being able to I don't want to say self-regulate because that sounds like you're moderating something. I think to have a better harmony with your mind and kind of, sort of, because everybody has mental dilemmas, and I think having that harmony and a better relationship with it is something that I actively try to preach, and I try to, learn from other people in their pursuits and that sort of thing. And especially in a creative field where it's like, especially right now, it's kind of a big unknown as far as like work goes. And I'm sure you sort of feel like, well, maybe I don't want to assume what you're feeling, but I assume maybe there's a tense there in terms of like future work that's going to come up and that sort of thing. Because I definitely feel that, and then I have a project come up, I'm like, okay, I'm good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm imagining you sort of feel a little bit.
It's interesting because it's like when you choose to pursue film, you're pretty much told at every possible moment that it's hard to pursue.
Yeah.
Which is very true. It's hard. It's hard. But it's also like in that you have to find ways to be okay with watering other gardens in your life, like alongside film. Like you're going to put a lot of, and I'm speaking for myself, I put a lot of focus and energy and importance into becoming, a successful filmmaker.
Yeah.
That being said, you have to realize that, bro, there are like other parts of your life that make up a healthy life.
Yeah.
So if you're just going hard at this, but you're not being healthy in all these other ways, you're going to fall apart.
Oh, yeah.
Like film has to be an extension, or anything, any pursuit has to be an extension of a healthy life.
Yeah.
Or else at a certain point, it's all going to crumble, So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to stay healthy physically, emotionally, surround myself with people that I care about. It is a tough time in the industry right now, but I will say because I have these things, I feel good. So it's a journey, but I think those are super important.
Yeah, it's definitely good that you keep sort of a routine and sort of like, all right, let me check in. Because I, at least for myself anyway, exercise is also like a huge bit of that because I'm like, all right, let me go off for like an hour, 2 hours. Let me just run something like that. Like I'll run like a few miles or whatever it is. Whatever I try to do like more based on time than miles. So whatever I do in 60 minutes, like that ends up being what I do for the day.
Right.
That sort of thing. But yeah, it's good that you have routines pretty set in stone of like, hey, I'm checking in on myself. And especially like having a more well-rounded life is definitely, something I'm still working on.
Mhm.
I think I'm growing parts of the pie, and it's definitely working out a little bit better. But definitely still needs some work on my end for sure, as far as rounding out the pie and making
Yeah.
sure everybody's like, you mentioned it before, like watering different
Yeah. Yeah.
plants
Yeah.
and just making sure everything's good. And that's cool that you do that. I definitely um, admire that for sure.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. What kind of things, like you mentioned, like going out and kind of living life and kind of being inspired. And I think just in terms of like living life, like sometimes you have to do that in order for certain ideas to make sense. Because there's definitely like been inklings of things that I've thought about doing where it's just like, okay, right now it's not clicking. I need to like step away and kind of be inspired in some sense. What are things that you do you have things that you look to where immediately you're like, I can be inspired by doing this sort of thing, or that I just,
That's interesting.
do you look to anything specific for inspiration? Do you just like, "F- it, I'm going to go out into the world and figure it out? Like, what's
Pretty
your,
much.
yeah,
I just like to. I'm often struck by inspiration.
yeah,
Like I didn't go out that night saying, "Man, I wish I find a cool artist." Like I literally was just driving
yeah,
around, listening to music, and I just stumbled upon it
yeah,
and was struck.
yeah,
Like so, it's really just living and taking note of different situations, and these things are kind of like little like seeds. So like they kind of start to grow in your brain,
mm-hmm,
like a situation that you encounter that may be incredibly awkward and and unpleasant
mm-hmm,
can bloom in your brain later as like, what if you had a story about that? So it's really
mm,
just living life and then just letting, for me at least, inspiration naturally take me. And it's also, as I've said, being exposed to other pieces of art, because other artists doing incredible things can absolutely motivate you to join the party, so to speak. And like for me, it's usually directors and writers and composers who
yeah,
take unorthodox approaches to things and really trying to challenge the precedent and bring something new to the table that's still inspired by the things that have been brought to the table, but do it in a way that feels fresh and exciting. Like that really gets me motivated as an artist.
yeah. I've definitely looked into other mediums
Mm-hmm.
before. Like we talked about it just before. I bought a Mamiya,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never really shot anything proper
Mm-hmm.
as far as like film photography goes. Done some 8 mil, done a handful of 16 millimeter. Nothing like photography and setting like an intention for a
Yeah.
singular image. Like I think that'll be, have yet to explore it, but I think it would be a really interesting medium to kind of delve into. And as far as like different art goes, I think always watching films or something that I like. Not that I go for somebody specific, but in terms of like films that I watch, I just, whatever people are talking about, I want to be in that sort of dialogue. Like we talked about Civil War the other day. I
Mm-hmm.
still have yet to see it, but that'll be something that I see soon. Those sorts of things, as well as just sort of weird contemporary art
Mm-hmm.
that, I like to pick the meaning of. Like, I like Mischief, for example. They
Mm-hmm.
do some really fun stuff. And there's a couple other art organizations like that that I think do interest enough that are separate from filmmaking that I can sort of look at and take away my own interpretation and something that I'm like, that would be interesting to put in this film or this film, like that are sort of ongoing projects. I'm like, I could pick this apart and
Mm-hmm.
kind of go that way with it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really interesting
Mm-hmm.
to hear where you pick inspiration from. That's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like art is an extension of life, so
Definitely.
a more robust life is gonna create more interesting art. In
And
my
it's a really like subjective thing as well,
opinion.
because everybody sort of experiences life differently, and ultimately, like when you're putting something out there, it's like it's going to be perceived all different ways, whether we choose to make that
Yeah.
choice or not. Like it's perceived differently, and that's kind of the cool thing about it, is I think art can be very divisive, or it can be really uniting in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really interesting. But yeah, so as far as projects coming up,
Mm-hmm.
what are things that you're working on? What is not under embargo? Because I imagine you have certain things under embargo that you're not
Interesting.
at liberty to discuss. What are you working on now? What can we look forward to?
Unfortunately, everything is kind of, I don't want to say embargo,
Sure.
but like,
Top secret.
yeah,
Okay.
they're top secret. Just know that very focused on getting some solid feature scripts done right now, and would love to shoot something for those, if not the full feature, a proof of concept
Yeah.
for one or the other soon.
Yeah.
That's all I can really say right now. I'm just excited to bring things into the world that I wish existed. That's basically my entire mantra.
Yeah.
Like, just bring things that I want to see. I met a dope painter or a portrait artist who I'd never seen anything like, and I want to see a film on him
Mm-hmm.
that stylistically is compatible with his kind of rebellious nature as an artist, his rebellious, bold, colorful nature as an artist. And so I did it. So like,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I want to do. I want to see films that embody something, then I make the thing that I want it, that I wish existed. So those are the things that I'm working on currently, without saying anything about them, or without saying anything specific.
So
But
nothing but everything.
yeah. Well, yeah, it's definitely everything. And I also think it's important as an artist to, it's okay to not be, it's okay to explore.
Yeah.
It's okay to explore what your next move is. Like, I'm working on these things, but there's also days where it's like, am I cracking this the way it needs to be cracked?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is clicking in the right way. It's okay to step back from that specific project, let your brain roam, and just get inspired by life. Like, it's okay. Or get inspired by other pieces of art. Like, it's okay. Like, it's a process, and it truly is a marathon, So
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That.
what I'm doing. But I will say, writing is very fun when it's not punishing in every conceivable way.
Interesting.
Because it takes a lot of focus. But, once I live for being able to get things done and being able to improve it. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to the next things up.
All right, that concludes today's episode of the ALG show. I've only really known Justin for less than a year, and it's been really cool to see both the work that he's done before as well as things that he's currently working on. I've talked with him before on ideas I've had for the show as well as, current projects I'm working on, and he's been someone who has really shifted the way that I view my work for sure. And I hope today's conversation shifted something for you or maybe inspired you in some way. That's the end of my spiel, and hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.